The Four Noble Truths. The first noble truth is suffering. The 12 modes of suffering. 1. Jati, birth. By jati is meant all the events from conception of the being in the mother's womb until its emergence or extrusion. Jati is suffering as it is the root of many other forms of suffering. One who is born in the mother's womb is not conceived in a flower chamber or gold or silver relic chamber. One is being conceived in the lower part of the mother's abdomen. Thereafter, for 10 months, the being suffers in the heat of the womb, also being unable to stretch its hands and feet. This is termed dukkha resulting from conception. Garbhava kranti moolaka dukkha. When the moment of intrusion from the womb dawns, the head turned down from the gases produced from the womb itself is pushed towards vagina, which process the being feels sufferingly as one crushed by a huge mountain. While the being is ejected from the tiny mouth of vagina, a heavy pressure is felt. The newborn infant, just having emerged out of the womb, is washed and cleaned, at which instance it is felt by the infant like a fistula applied with salt and rubbed by a piece of rough object, and so it suffers. This is dukkha-rooted emergence, or vahir nishkramana moolaka dukkha. The suffering confronted by those who commit suicide at prime of their youth, those who reject food either out of wickedness or greed, and those who picket on thorny mats in the midday heat, with fraudulent unity is termed dukkha rooted in the internal activity of the mind, or Atmopakrama moolaka dukkha. If there is any suffering levied on the one by an external agency, such as bruising, cutting, and bonds of affection and enmity, it is dukkha rooted in external procedure, or paropakrama moolaka dukkha. As for every above stipulated dukkha, jati is the pivotal factor from which subsequent suffering ensues, and thus can it be unhesitatingly concluded that jati is but suffering. Four Noble Truths. First Noble Truth is suffering. Part 1 of suffering, birth. Birth is a suffering. Jatipi dukkha. Four Noble Truths. The first Noble Truth is suffering. Part 2 of suffering, aging. Aging is a suffering. Jara or aging, senility. Decadence of the skandhas or aggregates of the person is popularly referred to as jara. When the life gets stale, hair on the head and body turn white, teeth slacken and eventually fall. the skin becomes wrinkled and less colorful. Dark spots make their appearance on the skin, scales to appear on skin. Joints and arteries jut out. Spinal column shrinks, giving a bent posture to the old. One's eyesight declines and quite often gets blind. Taste is lost. Things done and things to be done are easily forgotten. Intelligence wears away. Lots of mistakes are made. There is a drastic downfall of physical strength. Hands and legs begin trembling. Even children despise old, haggardly people. Although aging does not naturally impose sorrow and affliction, one who is weighed down by aging suffers mentally as well as physically. For this physico-mental suffering, jara is the cause. Therefore, it should be categorically pinpointed that jara is suffering, a massive dukkha to be borne. For the old man, coming to a sitting position from the sleeping position, and thereupon coming to the standing position from the sitting position, involves quite a bit of suffering. While walking a scanty distance, the old person suffers many bodily pains that have naturally arisen. His positioning of the foot being flawed, at very many times he falls down. Having fallen down in such and such a way, he suffers fractures of bones that levy on him no small amount of pain. The fact that he is unable to do any work to earn a penny is also a piece of suffering. The inability to eat food items he relishes in the usual way is further suffering. The incapacity to protect and safeguard his property and generally what he owns is also still more suffering or dukkha. While being in an incapacitated condition, having to endure jibbing and ridiculing of others is yet another form of suffering. Having to face the arrogance of lovingly fostered kith and kin, so also be neglected by them too causes heavy suffering. There are multifarious number of suffering owing to aging. Text by Most Venerable Rerukane Chanda Vimala Mahanayaka Dev. May you attain the supreme bliss of Nirvana. Dharma Guru channel is created purely for non-profit educational purposes and for truly charity purposes. Teaching Dhamma is the greatest teaching. Please continue to follow these lessons and learn Buddha's teachings in the most simplest way. Become a good Buddhist and conquer samsara, attaining nirvana. The most precious gift to you from Sri Lanka.